John Schneider and Harini Sridharan. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
It is a pleasure to be with both of you. You're joining us from different parts of California, northern and southern. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about modernizing performance management and some better work systems that help you to do that. So I'm super excited to explore this with both of you. As we get started, I wanted to share your bios with everybody. John brings BetterWorks' vast experience and a proven track record of leading large-scale business transformations for growth and position in the marketplace. Prior to joining BetterWorks, he was Vice President of Platform and Solutions Marketing at IntApp. In this role, he was responsible for evolving product positioning to platform-based solutions that drove increased value for customers, expanded the business into new markets, and led to successful acquisitions of adjacent technologies to fulfill IntApp's position as the market leader. His work at IntApp directly contributed to accelerated revenue growth, which ultimately resulted in a $1 billion plus IPO. Harini is a strategic marketer who is passionate about how companies bring new offerings to market and get them into the hands of customers. As the head of product marketing at BetterWorks, she is responsible for their go-to market strategy, product launches, analyst relations, partnership marketing, and sales enablement. She has a decade of experience as a product marketer with notable companies such as Jive and IntApp, where she has supported key company initiatives such as crafting the company's IPO narrative, leading the go-to-market integration of strategic acquisition, and designing the messaging for a unified platform story across a wide range of products. Both of you have an amazing background and really fascinating careers. Before we dive on into the conversation more broadly, I'd love to just give both of you a minute to share anything else about yourselves, your background, your personal context, and then we'll dive on in.
Great, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you covered a lot of ground there. I'm the CMO at BetterWorks. I joined the company about 14, 15 months ago after the IPO of IntApp. And I was really attracted to the challenge or opportunity, if you will, in the marketplace of helping the workforce evolve performance management. It was a very exciting time in terms of the move to hybrid work and some of the new paradigms around future of work concepts that were actually becoming reality very, very fast. And BetterWorks was incredibly positioned to do that. So that's sort of why I ended up here. I'm down in San Diego. I've got 3 boys, a golden retriever to my left, and a wife. So that's about it for me.
Wonderful.
I don't have very much to add. You covered it all perfectly, John, but basically I lead product marketing at BetterWorks. I've been here 12 months, about a year now. And my number one job here is as a product marketer, is to act with extreme empathy for our target audience, in which case, in this specific case, is HR leaders and practitioners, and which is why I'm here. So it's for me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And as we dive on into the conversation, John, if you wouldn't mind just starting us off by telling us a little bit about BetterWorks and what you're doing there at BetterWorks.
Absolutely. BetterWorks is really focused on taking that age-old process of performance management, and it's something that I think we all know completely does not fit in the modern way in which work gets done, and we're reimagining that entire process. We know traditional performance management has epically failed to motivate employees to perform at their best, which at the end of the day is what it's intended to do. And so, we look at that traditional performance review process that's universally seen as, cumbersome, time-consuming, ineffective, biased, and really disconnected overall from everything it's supposed to do about rewarding and encouraging performance. And we really re-engineer that entire process, if you will. And I think, that what's so exciting about that is it really strikes to the heart of so many things that what workers really want and have always wanted, very human needs of what drives the purpose and the engagement around it. And there's so much demand for that today in terms of what CHROs and HR leaders are looking for today. So we're really on a mission to really change performance management to a concept called performance enablement, one that's forward-looking, that helps coach and develop employees and engage them with their managers in ways that are meaningful and constructive versus punitive and, backwards looking and all the things that have been, again, universally hated top to bottom in the company. Even the C-suite hates performance reviews. Nobody likes it. So that's what we're after at BetterWorks.
Yeah, nobody likes it. And it's been that way for a long time. I mean, when was it? It was even 12 plus years ago when some of the tech firms, I remember Adobe making the big announcement that they're getting rid of all performance appraisals and whatnot. And of course, they're not getting rid of performance management. Everyone has to have coaching and feedback and opportunities to address performance issues, etc. But they recognize what we all recognize, that it's not effective. In fact, in many ways, it can be very problematic, the traditional approaches that might have worked a little bit better in a different day and age, but certainly doesn't work now. And we could even debate whether it worked well, 20, 30 years ago. And so that's been the trend, right? And increasingly more and more organizations have moved away from the traditional models of performance management systems. And in this modern era, in the modern world of work, and as things continue to evolve, we need to be able to adapt. And if we can't adapt, we're going to be dinosaurs. We're going to fall behind. Certainly, we're not going to get the best out of our people, but we're also going to continue these processes that are time intensive, don't really add a whole lot of value, and sometimes make things worse.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, Adobe's a great example. They were really headliners in taking that old process and, not continuing with it. And it made a lot of news. And now what we now see is, it's becoming more principled and repeatable, and companies, not just Adobe, are looking at this, and it's more at scale. So then comes into the question the technologies like BetterWorks offers to enable that and make it repeatable and easy to perform and such. So there's been a tremendous amount of innovation since, if you would, early company adopters like an Adobe had kind of pioneered, like, let's just scrap what was and do something different.
Yeah, there's a lot of reason behind why it doesn't work, right? There are, so our own customers, Colgate is a great one. They're a household name. They've been leaders in the personal care space for a very, very long time. And to maintain this lead requires intense focus and a lot of agility, especially more in the recent times when there's been so much headwind around increased cost of raw material and so many competitors, especially the direct-to-consumer startups. So they've needed to be this company that was extremely agile, rapidly iterates, has these fast decision cycles, and the old way of performance management just doesn't work, right? Because you set goals for the entire year. The way the old performance management works is that you set goals for the entire year, and then you revisit it 1 year later to see if you've accomplished these goals. And that doesn't work anymore in an environment where your goals keep changing every quarter or maybe even oftener. And so they needed to be a lot more agile. They needed their managers and their employees to have frequent conversations. So everybody was aligned to responding to all of the new information and the strategy changes. And so managers could support their employees learning new career skills to cater to the new needs of the business. And so, and also ensure that there was continued trust in leadership as leadership was making these changes. And that was one of the reasons why they chose BetterWorks. And that's just one of many use cases why that illustrate why the age-old performance management model doesn't work anymore, and why so many companies are shifting to this new way of approaching performance.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I also saw recently news around Red Thread Research Tech Consortium. I know BetterWorks joined the consortium. Harini, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that involvement there and how you envision BetterWorks' involvement in the future.
Yep. So we have been big fans of Red Thread even before the Tech Consortium formed. There's a lot of alignment in terms of the topics that we are focused on as companies. Red Thread focuses its research on what we consider are core objectives of a performance management solution, a modern performance management solution. So the research agenda includes topics such as employee engagement, skill development, continuous upskilling, manager effectiveness, employee experience and culture. And these are the exact kind of outcomes that we hope to bring about through our product. So there's a lot of alignment there. And in addition to this, we are also We, as a performance management solution, are specifically focused on the needs of the large enterprise, which obviously is very unique in terms of because of their own unique challenges, right? They are structurally a lot more complex. They have multiple divisions and subsidiaries, and they have large distributed workforces and different modes of working. And Red Thread really understands the HR challenges that comes with it, and they specifically address their research to also include an understanding of these challenges, the nuances behind these challenges. So there's a lot of synergy there, and we are hoping that, and we're excited about, as a consortium, which includes many reputable members like Workday and Degreed and Visier, we are hoping to come together and not just share our collective wisdom and leverage the research that Red Thread is creating, but also bring up topics that we hear from our customers around what are the most burning issues and questions for them, support the research around focusing on these topics that are of most interest to our customers. And we're hoping that the research in turn will inform our product direction. So that's our biggest motivation behind the tech consortium.
Yeah, and for listeners who may not be aware and familiar with Red Thread Research Tech Consortium, really is a fantastic resource. So absolutely check it out, look it up, and look at what they're doing and the resources that are available. And you referred, Harini, to engagement as one of those things that is impacted by the modern performance management approach and some of the stuff that you're doing there at BetterWorks. Maybe we can drill down on that a little bit more and talk more about employee engagement and the trends that we see. Now, Gallup has been doing their annual engagement survey for a long time now. The percentage of engaged people at work usually hovers around, a third or a little bit more than a third of workers. The actively disengaged tend to be a really dramatic, large number of the workforce, which is really concerning. Tell us a little bit more about some of the current trends that you're seeing around worker engagement, and what a different approach towards performance management, how that might be able to address some of this engagement types of issues and challenges that we're seeing.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and it's what BetterWorks is aimed at solving for. It seems like Gallup never seems to come out with a score that is satisfactory to businesses in terms of employee engagement, and it dropped to 32% this past year, which is definitely alarming. Which always implies that the disengagement level, the active disengagement level, is going up too, which is almost terrifying probably to a CEO. So that's a challenge. And I think, the first thing we have to answer about, why is employee engagement such a barometer, and why is it so important? And, it's a bigger metric. For a long time, employee satisfaction was more just about, are you paid well? Are you happy being here? Do you like your colleagues, and how are your benefits? And it was very, specific, almost like contractual level. Is your role good? Contractual level things. But employee engagement tries to encapsulate the heart of how an employee experiences their work, which in turns to that commitment they'll have and their drive to do their best and perform at their best. And we do repeatedly see that even satisfied employees, we do an annual study of the workforce. It's a global study. We have over 2,000 respondents. And what we found in last year's study was that even employees that were quitting or planning to quit said they have good feelings about their company. So employee satisfaction wasn't even on the radar of being too problematic, but they were disengaged or they were ready to bolt out the door. And that's pretty scary. So why would it be in a free fall, right? I think first, we all know the workforce is exhausted. In a short time, we've gone from the booming economy to one that's now wobbly at best, maybe going into recession. And then, and things that are not as much in the control of, not economic as much, but, the pandemic from, now there's war, and then there's social unrest. There's all these variables that are weighing heavily in the lives of everybody, you, me, everybody, right? And so I think we all know that one has been around. and it really exhausts the employees, and probably leads to some, concerns there. But, also that point that we made early on, which was, work has fundamentally changed, right? In a few short years, there's been about 2 decades of future of work predictions that have been crammed into those very short windows. Remote and hybrid work. We have much more network teams solving problems, which means managers have a completely different role in that environment. The way goals are accomplished in team environments. And there's so many other things that we've started to see and realize about that new, the new way in which work is getting done today. Workers, it's not lost on them that they're, that this work environment has changed. The butts and seat model no longer, is believable. Before it was, employers saying you got to sit here 40 hours a week. They're like, wait, for 3 years, I just navigated my job at home. In fact, I worked more hours and did more. So that renegotiation of the contract is going way beyond the literal terms of the contract itself, of, pay and role and all that. And it really starts to strike at things that Better Work solves for. How does an employee feel and develop purpose and alignment to the company, and that they're accomplishing ambitious goals that are important to the business? That's a very important part of why somebody would be engaged. Another one would be, having managers that coach, not looking backwards and punitively doing reviews, but actually coach and develop their employees for success. And and then the overall purpose of the company. They're asking for a company to be more purpose-driven, have a greater meaning than just the profit motive alone. And so all of that, boils into this need for a connection to people, connection to purpose and meaning in their jobs. And, if we see those more robust engagement environments, where workforces are highly motivated, you're going to see that employee alignment to goals. You're going to see the transparency. People feel like they understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. And they certainly are probably collaborating and interacting across teams, across space and time boundaries in ways that work for their personal life, at the same time are accomplishing things that are very important. The traditional org chart is not how work is getting done in those environments. And so we see all of those things happening around employee engagement today. And it's a lot for an HR leader to take in and solve against, because it happens so fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Harini, anything you would like to add to that?
Yeah, so there's also the manager effectiveness angle to this, right? Which is the linchpin of employee engagement. It's basically managers who make or break what the employee experience is like at a company. And the interesting thing is there are so many companies that are growing so rapidly. And when they grow so rapidly, and they're in the hyper growth mode, what's really, they're also promoting people at a much rapid pace. And what happens is that there are now really high performing ICs, individual contributors, who are suddenly people managers, who are no longer high performing as people managers, only because they've not trained to be high performing people managers. So how do you run an effective company? How do you make these managers more effective? How do you help first-time managers help maintain the scale of a strong, when you scale your company, how do you maintain a strong and innovative culture with first-time managers? So that's another important topic for us that's really critical to maintaining employee engagement, and that's a pivotal that's pivotal to what our product does as well.
Yeah, awesome. And maybe in our last few minutes together, we can talk a little bit more specifically about the technological innovations that HR leaders are evaluating right now and trying to figure out how to utilize to modernize performance management.
Do you want to take that, Harini? That sounds like a product marketing.
Sure. Yeah. There's definitely a people analytics angle to it, right? Which is when I think about the technology innovations that are most top of mind for HR leaders, the first thing I think about is how do HR leaders become more strategic? How do they better support business transformation efforts? And the first thing that comes to mind from a technology standpoint that can support that is people analytics. So how do they help? How do they make better choices about their people and for their people, especially in a time when uncertainty and confusion can just in the market itself, and how workers are feeling, just cloud decision making. So things like and people analytics is getting a lot more advanced. It can help answer questions that HR has not been able to answer before, which in turn supports high-level business decision-making. Questions such as assessing the value of their training programs. What percentage of poor performers are becoming good or better performers within the year because of their development efforts or training programs? We know that HR spends so much time and money and effort into learning and development programs, but they don't really know if they're effective, and people analytics can actually help there. Another critical area is where people analytics can play a huge role is to eliminate bias in the workplace, answering questions such as, are minority groups getting the same number of career and coaching conversations as others? Which departments or which locations has the largest gender bias or ethnicity bias? So it can answer these really critical questions. Speaking of diversity and inclusion and removing unconscious bias, another big technology area is AI, of course, right? Even we have started using AI to detect in real time unconscious bias in peer feedback or manager reviews that are being written, and to provide adjustment recommendations. AI is being used so much more in the performance management space, and I see it being used even more. Like ChatGPT is a big topic these days, and you can imagine the technology behind ChatGPT could help managers write more comprehensive and better performance reviews, or help HR or people leaders prepare for like difficult conversations with employees, or help employees define their goals better. SMART goals, they call it, right? How do you define goals that are most effective and meaningful? So those are the things that come top of mind for me when I think about technology.
I think I would just add one other point is that in order to get the data, there's a very important aspect of the innovation that we focus on, and that is, of course, on user experience. And it kind of just rounds out kind of the opening parts about how much the performance review is universally hated. Well, in a traditional performance review process, there's a system, probably the HCM technology, where you have to go about 6, 7, 8 clicks down into some application that is not the purpose of the HCM, but just a piece of it, and fill out a performance, evaluation or put in goals, and you don't go back until a year later or half a year later, and then you're sweating because you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even do that goal. It changed a week later. And so one of the concepts that we really focus on is the flow of work. And so we embed BetterWorks where people are doing their jobs. That's where engagement happens. If they are engaged and they're leaning in, they're doing it when they're writing their goals, discussing and having a conversation with their employees, getting feedback from their colleagues, or getting recognition. And the idea that that's going to be a standalone technology application whereby somebody has to go into it and all that does not reflect the way work gets done. And this is the real challenge that the way technology providers have gone after this problem for many years now aren't solving for. And BetterWorks, and somebody who uses BetterWorks, an employee, is likely to log in on average every week. And if you take an HCM with performance management, they log in quarterly, maybe semi-annually, probably, and maybe just annually. Weekly says a lot about how frequent they need to involve themselves in that technology to have these levels of engagement. So I think that's a really important part. You don't get the data if people don't use the technology. And that's what is the big fundamental problem. People hate the way it's been deployed to date.
Yeah, wonderful. John and Harini, it's been a real pleasure talking with you. I note the time. I need to let you go here in just a minute. Before we wrap things up, I wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
Absolutely. You want to go? Go ahead, Harini.
Connect with us, betterworks.com. You can always also reach out to me specifically. It's maybe in the podcast title, I'm sure my name is included. It's basically my first name dot last name at betterworks.com. Feel free to reach out to me directly as well. Final word. There's nothing more in this era of layoffs and the economy hit the economic downturn. There's nothing more important. There's nothing more important than for companies than using the limited resources that you have, putting your heads down, doing focused, effective work to keep the company moving. And that's been that's a big use case for performance management. Performance management was always meant to be a tool to enable companies, enable employees and the companies to do better, especially in a time like this. And we are hoping to revamp performance management to be exactly that.
Wonderful. John, anything you would like to say as final word?
Yeah, I'm easy to find, John at BetterWorks. And I would add also an advertisement for our thought leadership platform called People Fundamentals. There's a webinar on a monthly basis, and we bring thought leaders all over the industry to discuss the big relevant topics of the day. We have one in February coming up right now with Josh Burson, for example, and Rivian talking about modern performance management. So anybody who's interested in things like this podcast are probably interested in hearing these thought leadership topics. I think I'd close on, just kind of to add to it all. I think, one thing at BetterWorks, we don't like talking about how HR needs to take a seat at the table. They have a seat at the table. And I wanted to, just really urge CHROs and HR leaders to really look at their position from the standpoint of how much CEOs need them to lean in on the strategy and how to operationalize that strategy with the workforce in ways that they probably weren't asked in the past. All of this technology, the hybrid work environment, all these things, there's more at their fingertips to achieve all of this than ever before. It actually should be an exciting time to take on those challenges and be that hero to the CEO who's trying to get that workforce agility, develop the resilience needed, especially in a down economy. All of those things are relevant, and they're needed more than ever.
Wonderful. Again, John, Harini, it has been a real pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, get connected, find out more about what their team at BetterWorks can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.